everyone, it's Seth Rudetsky here on Seth Speaks. You have to read this book that's new, Mary and Ethel and Mikey, Who? By Stephen Cole.
Oh, wow. I have a theme song.
You finally do. Stephen Cole has been, lyricing for so long and writing for so long, but I feel like, Stephen Cole, this is your first book, right?
This is my first novel. I co-wrote Marnie Nixon's memoirs. I could have sung all night. I ghosted Charles Strauss's memoirs.
Put on a Happy Face?
Yeah, Put on a Happy Face.
I love
Isn't that a great
book.
I'm so proud of it.
That is an amazing book. I did not know you
thanked
ghosted
in
that.
the book along with his maid. It was excellent.
Wait a minute, Stephen Cole, go back for a second. So hold on. By the way, so this book is called Mary and Ethel, as in Mary Martin, Ethel Merman, and Mikey Who, and it's fiction, it's nonfiction. But hold on. Go back to Charles Strauss for a second. People don't know Charles Strauss, but he wrote Annie and Bye Bye Birdie, but he also suffers from depression. That's why I Put in a Happy Face. So you just sat with him and went through his career, and then you...
it was an interesting process writing that book because I was brought in at the end, and they needed a whole revamping of the book. I don't know who had worked with him before, and I had about 6 to 8 weeks to turn the whole book around. So
Isn't it harder when you... Is it harder when you have something and you have to fix it, or is it harder when you have nothing?
Yes.
Oh,
it was easier to work for a year with Marnie Nixon and talk to her and get everything out of her. With Charles, every time I would ask a question, I would email him about 10 times a day, and he'd say, "It's in the book." And I go, "No, it's not in the book." And so I had to find out a lot of stuff. And it was a wonderful experience.
It's a great book. So it's called Put on a Happy Face. It goes through everything, Bye Bye Birdie and Rags and Annie and I had Charles here. Why don't I play I think Judy Kuhn sang one of his songs from Rags. I'm going to play this as live. This is in the book Put on a Happy Face. Rags, if you don't know, you probably know the story, Stephen, because I know all these others. But anyway, the point is Judy Kuhn opens in Rags. She'd been doing tech, not being able to clean her house. And finally, it's the day after Rags opens. She's vacuuming. She sees the logo come up on TV. She goes, "Oh my God, they're talking about my show on TV." Turns off the vacuum and she hears Rags, which opened last night, will close tomorrow. What? So that's how she found out. Isn't that devastating? But that score, I do think it's Charles's best score.
Yeah, he thinks so too. And so do I.
It's stunning. So this is Judy Kuhn live here at Seth Speaks, singing from one of Stephen's many books, Put on a Happy Face. Hit it. Okay, that was Judy Kuhn singing Charles Strauss. So wait, one more question before we get to Mary and Ethel. So I had Marnie Nixon on the show, and I did not know that her son was that brilliant songwriter.
Andrew Gold.
He wrote,
"Thank you for being a friend."
But one of which I love, but also he wrote "Oh, What a Lonely Boy," which is stunning.
Correct.
Does she talk about that in the book?
Oh yeah, she talks about everything in the book. That book's out of print right now, but it's going to come back into print because there is talk right now of a feature film.
I would think so because people don't know Marnie Nixon.
On her life.
Yeah, because
this is the woman who sang for Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady and Deborah Carr in The King and I and
Natalie Wood in West Side Story.
Yeah.
I mean, what a story, and that would be a great feature film. Okay, so that's no longer in print, although I'm sure you can get on an eBay. And what's that called? Dance All Night?
No, that's called I Could Have Sung All Night. We wanted to call it Audrey Hepburn Dubbed My Face.
That is hilarious.
But the publisher wouldn't do it.
Oh my God.
They were crazy.
Okay, so Stephen Cole, so I know...
So this is my first fiction.
And yet, it's interesting because I have a book called Broadway Nights, and people think that it's really my diary, and it's not. However, throughout it, I tell all these true stories about Broadway, even though it's fiction. So that's what this book is, because it's a fiction book, but there are all these true stories about Mary Martin and Ethel Merman. How the hell did you ever even meet them? First of all, you're not old. So, what happened? You did a Ouija board?
I was very lucky to be the youngest person that Ethel Merman knew. I was friends with her in the last 2 years of her life. She used to come over to my apartment on 9th Avenue in Chelsea with a bunch of her friends.
Ethel Merman?
Ethel Merman. The first time she came over, she brought her son. The second time, she brought B'nai Venuta.
That was her understudy, right?
Yes, and she also replaced her in Anything Goes. She brought Maria Karnilova. And she would always bring 1 or 2 women and 20 gay men who would adore her.
Oh, that's nice.
And we
that makes me happy.
We would watch her on the screen, on my big screen television.
Wait, she would Norma Desmond, so she would watch herself?
She loved watching herself.
You know, I love that. I can't stand those people that are like, I hate watching myself.
Oh, no, she said that on television, but that wasn't true. And she would sit there and she would say things like, "You see me there? That's 1966. I wasn't wearing a bra." If I did that now, they'd hit the floor. And so we all had the greatest time.
Wait, why was she even coming over to Ninth Avenue? How did you meet her?
I met her through her concert manager. She used to do all these symphony concerts. And he came to my house for the year before I met her and saw all these rare videos I had. You remember VHS tapes, right? Yeah, I had a lot of those. And nobody else had these.
You were like the Mark Sendroff
I was
before
that
Mark
guy.
Sendroff.
And finally, he told her. And I went to see her at Carnegie Hall, and I went backstage, and she said, I'm coming to your house. And 2 days later, I was living in a That Girl episode. She came to my house.
Stephen Cole, I'm freaking out.
It was fantastic. And I was younger, a little younger than her. Let's say she was 75, and I was, 55 years younger. But she treated me like a contemporary, a friend.
That makes me happy because she has
stuff.
She has like a mixed reputation.
Yeah. With me, she couldn't have been lovelier. Although I always felt behind that wonderful, warm New York lady, she could kill if she needed to. She had to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm telling you now stories that I know that maybe you don't know, just to see if you appreciate it. Donna McKechnie did
Call Me Madam.
Yes, the tour. And Ethel complained that asked Donna to sweat less during her dance.
Correct.
Okay.
Donna read the book before anybody.
Okay, I want to make sure you knew that.
And loved it. And, we have a quote for her on the back. So did I say I loved it? I loved it.
Okay, brava. Wait, another Ethel story is Patti LuPone, when they were at Juilliard, they each had to go to famous stars of the generation way above them to team up to be anti-Vietnam. And of course, Patty went to Ethel, and Ethel was like, "Get out of here, you communist!" So anyway,
I kind of believe that. I believe that. Both Ethel and Mary were old-fashioned Republicans.
Right? Were they not really racist and anti-gay? They were more just like
And Mary is from Weatherford, Texas, so she was a Texas gal. And
how did you meet Mary?
Through Ethel.
Okay, so hold on, wait. Before we go, we got to play at least one Ethel song. I mean, there's so many to choose from. What do you want me to play of Ethel's?
What do I want to hear?
Yeah.
You have something from I made 2 CDs called Mermania, which were from her private records. Because after she died, her son, if you don't have these, I'll get them to you. After she died, her son said, "Come on over. I just found a box of records in the closet."
What?
And I found this box of records. And 2 of the songs there were 2 songs that she sang in Happy Hunting that were interpolated after the show opened. Because she got mad at the original composer, and Roger Edens wrote some new songs for her. And there were those songs not on the cast.
So they're not on the Happy Hunting album, but they were put on the show, and you have.
And they're on Mermania Part 1.
Okay, so we're cutting to one of them. Okay, so this is not on the Happy Hunting album, but it was added after. Hit it.
What's with me acting like a schoolgirl in a heavy affair? I'm old enough to know better, but I'm young enough to not care. Why waste time heating up the souffle? Why begin the begin? I'm old enough to flash red light, but I'm young enough to flash green. I'm no plaster saint who thinks it's just a waste to taste that apple. But one thing that I ain't is saving myself for that old Philadelphia scrapple. Holding hands gives me young ideas, leaves me walking on air. I'm old enough to know better, but I'm young enough to not care. I should be resigned to stay at home a-sittin' with my knittin', but I've changed my mind. I'm hell-bent for leather, the horse and the weather permittin'. Don't I know this is only kid stuff, a delusion and snare? I know I ought to be careful, and if I were wiser I'd scram. I'm man enough to be stronger, but I'm woman enough about it. Just a giddy galoot about a dove. Lay it on, Macduff. I'm old enough to know better. But I guess I'm young enough to still fall in love.
Yeah, how the hell did you meet Mary Martin?
Is that the question now?
Well, it's two. How did you meet, and were they rivals?
Well, I met Mary also through her manager, who was Bob Gardner, who was Ethel's manager, and he loved Mary more than he loved Ethel. So he said, "Oh, Mary's going to be
He managed
in town."
both?
He only managed Merman. He was trying to manage Mary. Mary never wound up doing many symphony concerts. She didn't do as many, but Ethel did a lot. So I met her. She couldn't have been lovely. She was the opposite of Ethel, of course.
She was a
She was
lady.
just a very sweet, with that lovely Texan accent. And she decided, Mary, that I was going to be useful to her. So she would send me letters from Palm Springs. She would call me from Palm Springs. And when she wanted things, and there was always video type things, she said, Stephen, I remember doing a movie. My first movie was The Great Victor Herbert. And it was. And she said, I would love to have a tape of that. And I didn't have a tape of that. And she said, well, what if you called up my friend Alan Jones? He co-starred with me. Here's his number. And so I called Alan Jones.
But wait, why is she not doing it?
Exactly.
Okay,
and I
fine.
called Alan Jones. He said, oh, sure, anything for Mary. He sent me the videotape. I sent her the videotape, and that was that. She never had to pick up a phone, but she had me. She knew that was the kind of person she was. She had people do things for her. Ethel just called somebody up and said, I need this, and that was the end of that.
Oh, my God.
They were so different, but they were considered rivals, but I feel, and that's in the book. The book is about Mikey Marvin Minkus, who time travels. He walks into Ethel Merman's closet and goes back to 1939 to Sophie Tucker's dressing room at the Imperial Theater.
It's literally like Narnia, but instead of going to Narnia, you go to Sophie Tucker's dressing room, which is hilarious.
And so he follows their careers then from 39 all the way up to 70 when he finally decides to go back to 1983.
So this is your way to give all this amazing history, but instead of just making it a pedantic history book, you make it into like a fiction.
Exactly. It started out being almost nonfiction, but as I was writing it, I was writing really funny dialogue and letters, and I thought, well, I'm making all this up. I have to make sure everybody knows it's something else. And so it became this wonderful, I think it's that story that we all wish could happen to us. Don't you wish we could walk into a closet and go back in time and see Leave It to Me?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, a lot of people always say, if I could go back in time, what show would it be? And of course, I quote unquote feel so old. People will be like, Sweeney Todd will Carrie. I'm like, I saw it. So what would your show be if you could go back in time?
Well, I had Mikey go back to the early 1940s, 42, and he got to see By Jupiter at the Schubert Theater, starring Ray Bolger. And oddly enough, Benet Venuta was opposite him in that. So he got to see that, and so I feel like I did. I went back, and now I thought, well, why didn't he go to a matinee of Lady in the Dark at the same time? I want to see that one.
So old school.
There's so many.
I actually would love to have seen Anything Goes with Vivian Vance, because she did go on, right?
She went on, once maybe.
Did Ethel ever say anything about
Ethel
Vivian?
probably did not enjoy her going
No, she's a
on.
competitive.
She hardly ever missed performances, so.
She was old school, man.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this book, Mary and Ethel and Mikey Who, it's by you, Stephen Cole. I guess two things I want to do. So I'm gonna end by actually going to Forbidden Broadway about their rivalry. I'm gonna do the Ethel Merman, Mary Martin Forbidden Broadway, because that's supposed to be coming to Broadway. It's very up your alley. And I'm gonna tell you a Mary Martin story that I really hope you don't know, because I'm obsessed with it. Florence Henderson told me this. Do you happen to know about a telegram?
No.
Okay, I am so
me.
excited to tell you this story. Florence Henderson, I got to interview her. She was starring in Fanny with Ezio Pinza. Mm-hmm. Mary Martin was doing Peter Pan at the time, but of course she knew Ezio. Peter Pan was, this mega hit. Florence Henderson told me that on an opening night, Mary Martin wrote to them, Dear Ezio and Florence, I hope your Fanny is as big as my Peter.
Perfect.
Isn't that great?
Perfect. Well, that was her. She did have that kind of sense of humor too. She wasn't Maria
Miss
von
Priss?
Trapp. She wasn't a nun.
Oh, I thought she was kind of more Miss Priss. I was shocked when I heard that.
She wouldn't say words though. She might have written it. She, instead of saying something like shit, she would go, oh, plop.
Oh, brother.
Oh, plop. That was Mary's big expletive.
What did you think about Larry Hagman being the biggest star?
You know, he used to say to her at the end when he was a bigger star than she, he'd say, "Mom, I'm a bigger star than you," and she'd go, "Yes, but I'm a legend." So they were good together.
That's hilarious.
That was it. And in my book, though, I kind of debunk the whole rivalry thing, which is fun because they were friends, and I knew Ethel at the end. Ethel had a brain tumor. I don't know if you know that in the last part of her life. That's what she died of. And Mary spoke to me from Palm Springs, said, "Oh, gosh, if anything could fell the mighty Merm, we're all in trouble." And she
they
used
really
to send
respected
her,
each other.
They respected each other for sure. And although Ethel said things like, "Mary's okay if you like talent."
Well, that's actually a compliment.
Yeah.
How great. And did you ever, by the way, get to be friends with Harvey Evans, who worked with Ethel?
No, I really didn't. I didn't know Harvey.
Harvey was, if people don't know, Harvey was a replacement Tulsa, and he really debunked the whole myth about like Ethel not being a good actress. He said she was an incredible actress. He said she would do that final scene with Herbie and be crying on stage. He said, but she would literally walk off stage and be like, "A sailor walks into a bar and his dick." I mean, she said 1 second later.
Yeah, she was. And, you know, Anita Gillette did the audiobook of this, I have to tell you.
Oh, my God. Anita Gillette, there's an audiobook already?
You have to have her on because she did the most brilliant job. She does not read the book. She performs the book. Now, she was in Gypsy, too. She was in the run. She was a standby dainty June. And this is her story. And she said, I got pregnant. She was 20 then. She was married. She got pregnant. And David Merrick said, "I'm going to fire you." And Ethel said, "Wait a minute. No firing her. The kid stays in the show as long as she can still do the splits." And she kept her in for another 6 months. And
That's so nice that Ethel supported her. That is a great story.
So, you know, but the thing about Anita reading the book and performing the book is she knew all these people. She knew Ethel. She knew Mary. She was directed twice by Josh Logan. She was very good friends with Mr. Berlin. She called Mr. B. So whenever she does any voices in the book, she sounds just like them.
This is incredible. Oh, wow. So wait, we get Mary, Ethel, and Mikey, who I know we get on Amazon. Is there any?
Yeah. You can get it on Amazon easily, or through me. I'll send autographed copies.
You do? That's what I do.
Oh, I'll do that. Absolutely.
How do you
Find
do it?
me on Facebook. You know,
Stephen Cole, like Cole Porter.
Yeah.
But PH. And so the audiobook, how do we get that?
And that's on Audible and Amazon. So that's wonderful to get because she's so great. She's so great. But the hardcover, you know, I'd be happy to send people autographed copies.
That's a great. It's really great. I mean, it's a great picture of Mary.
Isn't that a great cover? That was
wonderful.
made by our publisher, Robert Armin. He designed that cover, and I really love that.
It's great. It's Mary and Ethel and Mikey on the cover.
Yeah.
In conclusion, so it's by Stephen Cole, Mary and Ethel and Mikey Who, and here's a little Forbidden Broadway parody of Mary and Ethel hating each other. Get this book and definitely get the audiobook. What a fun listen. Anita Gillette is great. Stephen Cole, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Seth.
That was so fun and fascinating.